At our own engagement party in the penthouse I designed and paid for, I overheard my fiancée whisper her true plan to her friends. She said, "Once we're married, I'll officially take over this place. David can just go live with his parents for a while." She expected a confrontation. She expected tears. Instead, I just smiled, walked into my office and made one phone call. She thought she was planning a hostile takeover. She didn't realize I owned the building. To understand how we got here, you need to rewind a bit. This whole situation didn't just happen overnight. It was built slowly over 2.5 years. I'm a furniture designer. I build things with my hands. Tangible things. Solid wood tables, custom-built shelves. Things that are meant to last. My work is my identity. Melissa, on the other hand, was a lifestyle influencer. Her identity was built on pixels and carefully curated captions. She was, for lack of a better term, a social media queen. I was the builder. We were different, and for a while that felt exciting. I thought I was the stable foundation she could build her dreams on. Turns out she just saw me as a convenient stage. The penthouse wasn't just an apartment to me. It was my biggest project. I spent 6 months renovating it myself, laying the hardwood floors, designing the kitchen island, building the bookshelves that lined the living room wall. It was my creation. Melissa loved it, of course. Not because of the craftsmanship, but because of the backdrop. The floor-to-ceiling windows were perfect for her morning routine posts. The marble countertop I installed was the ideal surface for her unboxing videos. Looking back, the red flags were there. They were small at first, easy to dismiss. There was the time she insisted we needed a specific, ridiculously expensive Italian sofa because, as she put it, it has the right aesthetic for my brand. I paid for it. Then there were the constant emergencies that could only be solved with my credit card. A last-minute brunch with other influencers. A must-have dress for an event. She'd call them our expenses, but the balance only ever showed up on my statement. The most telling sign was how she talked about our home. To me, it was the apartment I built. To her, it was always my place. She'd say things like, "I can't wait for my followers to see what I've done with my place." What she had done was arrange the decorative pillows I paid for. She'd talk about my view, my kitchen, my aesthetic. It was a subtle, constant erasure of my contribution, and the financial arrangement was anything but subtle. When we moved in, I paid 100% of the deposit. All $5,000. I paid 100% of the rent every single month for 14 months straight. Her name was never on the lease. Her credit was a mess from defaulted student loans, and at the time I told myself it was just easier to handle it all myself. Couples help each other out, right? I was building a future. She was building a brand. I just never realized her brand didn't include me in the long-term plan. Her only financial contribution was an occasional bag of groceries, usually bought with a Cash App request sent to me titled household stuff. The entitlement wasn't a sudden storm. It was a slow, creeping fog that I had somehow gotten used to. Until that party when the fog finally cleared, and I saw the cliff right in front of me. The next morning I woke up before her. I made coffee and sat in the living room, looking at the city skyline I paid for. She came out of the bedroom around 9, wearing one of my shirts, looking completely unfazed. She poured herself a coffee, then turned to me with a practiced, sympathetic smile. She said, "Honey, I've been thinking a lot, and I think this is for the best. I need this space to figure out my career, to really focus on my brand. It's nothing personal." I just looked at her. I said nothing. She continued, taking my silence as agreement. "So I was thinking you could probably be out by the weekend. I already talked to your mom, and she said it's totally fine for you to crash in your old room for a while." The sheer, breathtaking entitlement of it all. She had planned it, coordinated it. She had called my mother before even finalizing the breakup with me. She delivered the news like she was announcing a change in dinner plans. I took a slow sip of my coffee. I set the mug down on the coaster, making sure it was perfectly centered. I said, "That's an interesting plan, Melissa. A very bold strategy." She smiled, relieved. "I'm so glad you're being mature about this." I said, "There's just one tiny detail you seem to have overlooked." She looked confused. "What detail?" I let the silence hang in the air for a moment. Then I looked her straight in the eye. I said, "The landlord is my uncle." The smile vanished from her face. It didn't just fade, it shattered. Her expression went through 5 different stages of panic in about 3 seconds. Confusion, disbelief, dawning horror, anger, and finally, fear. She stammered, You're lying. The lease is with some property management company. No, I said calmly. The lease is with a company that my Uncle Frank owns. I told you that when we moved in, but I guess you weren't listening. My name is the only one on it. Your name is nowhere in any of the paperwork. Then I stood up. I walked to the bedroom, pulled out my phone and called him. The conversation was short. Uncle Frank, I said. It's David. The plan we talked about last night. It's a go. Please have your lawyer draw up the paperwork. He just said, consider it done, kid. Then I hung up. She expected a fight. She wanted a screaming match, tears, drama she could twist and use as ammunition for her victim narrative. But I refused to play her game. And in that moment I understood a fundamental truth about power that most people miss. I call it the art of the quiet exit. See, manipulators thrive on engagement. They create chaos and then feed on your reaction to it. Every angry word you shout, every tear you shed, it's fuel for their fire. They pull you into the mud because they're experts at fighting dirty. The moment you start defending yourself, you've already lost because you've accepted the premise of their ridiculous reality. The true power move, the real checkmate, is to refuse to play. It's to not engage with the drama. Instead of fighting on their terms, you quietly move your own pieces on a different board they didn't even know existed. You don't raise your voice. You make a phone call. You don't argue. You consult a lawyer. You don't break down. You build a case. The art of the quiet exit isn't about running away. It's about a strategic retreat to higher ground. It's the calm, methodical process of removing yourself from the chaos and letting the manipulator self-destruct in the vacuum you've left behind. They expect a war, but you give them silence. And in that silence, all they can hear is the sound of their own world crumbling. Her panic didn't last long. It was quickly replaced by something else: righteous indignation. The delusion of an influencer who believes their curated reality is the only reality. She spent the next few hours in a furious whirlwind of activity. I could hear her pacing in the other room, her thumbs tapping furiously on her phone screen. Then she emerged, holding her phone like a weapon. She had transformed from a cornered animal into a self-proclaimed legal scholar. She said, I've done my research. You can't just kick me out. I have rights. I just looked at her. Then I said, what rights would those be? She started reading from her phone, a triumphant look on her face. According to the Tenant Protection Act, you have to give me 30 days written notice. Minimum. And since you're doing this out of malice, I could sue you for wrongful eviction. I could see the screen. It was an article from a legal blog. For a different state. A state we did not live in. I said, Melissa, that law applies to legal tenants. You are not a tenant. You have never paid rent. You are not on the lease. You are legally speaking a long-term guest whose welcome has officially expired. She waved her hand dismissively, as if swatting away a fly. Details, details. I get mail here. That establishes residency. You get magazines here, I corrected. Magazines you subscribe to with my credit card. That doesn't establish anything. Her strategy then shifted from legal arguments to emotional warfare. Her phone started ringing. She put it on speaker. It was one of her influencer friends. I could hear her spinning the story, her voice thick with fake tears. She said, he's just throwing me out. After everything I've done for him, he's being financially abusive, trying to control me. Then she started calling her family. The narrative was the same. I was the monster. She was the victim. The calls were a performance, each one more dramatic than the last. She was building her army, rallying her troops, based on a complete work of fiction. Finally, a call came in that she didn't expect. My phone rang. It was her mother, Patricia. Patricia said, her voice tight with anger. David, what in the world are you doing to my daughter? She's hysterical. She says you're throwing her out on the street because she wants some space. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't get defensive. I just stated the facts calmly and clearly. I said, Patricia, with all due respect, that's not what's happening. Melissa announced to me yesterday that she was keeping my apartment, the one I pay for, entirely, and that I should go live with my parents. She is not being thrown out. She is facing the consequences of trying to make me homeless. There was a long pause on the other end of the line. I could hear Patricia processing this new information, which clearly did not align with the story she'd been told. She finally said, well, that doesn't sound like Melissa. I replied calmly, Doesn't it? Let me ask you who has paid the rent for the last 14 months? Who paid the security deposit? Another pause. Longer this time. I said, I'm not trying to be cruel, Patricia. I'm just enforcing a boundary that she tried to set first. I will send you the proof of payments if you'd like. The truth is the truth. It was exactly noon when her phone propped up on its little tripod. The ring light she used for everything cast a perfect angelic glow on her face. Her expression was a masterclass in curated victimhood. Sad, but brave. Disappointed, but strong. She hit the Go Live button. I stayed in the bedroom, but I had the stream open on my laptop. The comments started pouring in immediately. Hearts, sad faces, messages of support. We love you, Melissa. Stay strong, Queen. Tell us what happened. She took a shaky breath. She said, hey guys, I'm coming on here today because I have to do something really hard. I have to choose myself. I have to protect my peace. She was incredible. A true artist. She spoke about our relationship in vague, sad terms. Growing apart, different paths, never mentioning her plan to kick me out. She made it sound like she was the one making a noble sacrifice. She said, sometimes the person you love becomes a source of negativity, and you have to. You have to create a boundary. Thousands of people were watching, eating it up, calling me a monster in the comments without ever hearing my name. She was building her narrative brick by brick, painting herself as the hero of her own story. And then right on cue there was a knock at the door. It wasn't a timid knock. It was a firm, official-sounding knock. 3 sharp raps. Melissa's perfectly crafted composure flickered. She looked annoyed. She whispered to the camera, ugh, probably a delivery. 1 second, guys. She left the phone on the tripod and walked to the door. The camera had a perfect view of the entryway. She opened the door to a man in a plain uniform holding a large manila envelope. He said, are you Melissa? She said, yes. Can I help you? He said, I have a delivery for you. I just need you to sign to confirm you've received it. She looked confused but took the clipboard and signed. He handed her the large envelope and walked away. She closed the door, a puzzled look on her face. She walked back towards the camera, looking down at the envelope. So weird, she said to her audience. I didn't order anything. She started to tear it open. The camera was still rolling. The thousands of viewers were still watching. She pulled out a thick stack of papers. Her eyes started to scan the first page. And as I watched on my laptop, the camera, perfectly positioned by her own hand, zoomed in just enough to make the words at the top of the page crystal clear. It read, Official Notice of Eviction. I watched her face crumble in real time. The color drained from her cheeks. Her eyes widened in pure, unscripted horror. Her mouth opened, but no sound came out. The live chat, which had been a river of sympathetic hearts, suddenly froze. Then it exploded. Oh my God. Eviction. What is happening? Did he evict her? Wait, it says. 24 hours. She fumbled with the papers, her hands shaking. She looked up at the phone, finally realizing that her entire audience, her entire curated world, was watching her utter humiliation. The mask didn't just slip, it was ripped off. For a split second, she just stared, paralyzed. Then a strangled gasp. She lunged for the phone, her fingers jabbing at the screen. The live stream ended abruptly. The screen went black. But it was too late. Thousands of people had already taken a screenshot. My phone started blowing up almost immediately after the stream went dark. The first call was Melissa. It wasn't a conversation. It was a screech. She screamed, What did you do? You ruined me. My career is over. This is all your fault. I waited for her to run out of breath. Then I said calmly, I didn't do anything, Melissa. Your camera was on. Your audience saw the truth. The only thing I did was stop you from stealing my home. She screamed something else, a string of curses and threats, and then hung up. Then came the texts. A flood of them. You're a monster. I'll sue you for defamation. You'll regret this for the rest of your life. I didn't reply to any of them. It was ironic. Melissa had lived by the screen, building a fake life for a digital crowd, and in the end she was brought down by those same screens. It's a stark reminder of a new kind of justice in our era, the court of screens. In that world, every viewer is a juror. The evidence isn't complex legal documents. It's viral clips and screenshots. And the verdict isn't delivered with a judge's gavel, but with thousands of comments, messages, and the deafening click of the unfollow button. She tried to use her audience as a shield, but they became the witnesses to her execution. Later that evening, while scrolling through a local marketplace group on Facebook, I saw something that made my blood run cold. It was a listing for a handcrafted walnut coffee table. My coffee table. The one I spent a month designing and building. The listing was posted by her. The description read, "Selling some unnecessary decor from my new place. Great condition." She was already selling my creations from the apartment she had failed to steal. I took a screenshot, then another. I sent them both in a single text message to her mother, Patricia. I didn't add any commentary. The pictures spoke for themselves. Then the silence began. The angry texts from her influencer friends, the ones who had been her loyal soldiers just hours before, completely stopped. There were no more calls defending her. No more accusations. Nothing. I pictured her desperately calling them one by one, looking for a place to stay, a shoulder to cry on. And I pictured them looking at the viral clips, the screenshots, and making a cold, calculated decision. She was no longer an asset. She was a liability. Watching her support system evaporate wasn't just bad luck. It was the inevitable result of how she built her relationships. It was a classic lesson in the collapse of fragile social capital. See, there are two types of social networks. There's bonding capital built on genuine trust and mutual support, the kind of friends who will help you move a body. And then there's bridging capital, which is what Melissa had. It's a network of weak transactional ties. It's built on perceived value, shared aesthetics, and mutual benefit. It looks impressive from the outside, a huge follower count, a long list of contacts. But it's a house of cards. The moment your perceived value drops, the moment you stop being useful, the entire structure collapses. Her friends weren't loyal to her. They were loyal to the brand she had built. And when the brand went up in flames, they weren't going to stand around and get burned. The final call of the night came around 10. It was Patricia again. Her voice was completely different. The anger was gone, replaced by a deep, weary sadness. She said, "David, I just saw the screenshots you sent, and the video is everywhere. I am so sorry." I said, "You don't have to apologize for her actions, Patricia." "No," she insisted. "I do. I enabled this. I believed her stories. I thought I raised her better than this." There was a long pause. Then she sighed. "She's not a child." It's time she learned that actions have consequences. That was the moment I knew it was truly over. It wasn't just me against her anymore. The truth had its own allies. At exactly 2 p.m., the next day, the doorbell rang. It wasn't a process server this time. It was my Uncle Frank, and behind him were two professional movers in clean uniforms. He said I wanted this done by the book. No room for her to claim we damaged a single thing. The movers were brutally efficient. They worked in silence, packing Melissa's life into cardboard boxes. It was surprising how little there actually was once you took away all the things I had paid for. Clothes, makeup, a few dozen props for her photo shoots, and the gaming setup I'd bought her for Christmas. They had it all packed in under an hour. Melissa just sat on the floor watching a storm of desperation brewing in her eyes. Her last gamble was to play the victim one more time. She said, turning to me with tears welling up, "You're really going to do this? Just throw me out like I'm nothing?" I said, "I'm not throwing you out, Melissa. I'm helping you move on. You wanted to live separately. This is what that looks like." She tried another angle, a threat this time. "I'll tell everyone what you did. I'll ruin you." I just shook my head. "Ruin me for what?" "For not letting you steal my apartment." "Go ahead. Make sure you include that part in your story." As the last box was being taped shut, my phone buzzed. It was a message from an unknown number. "You don't know me, but my girlfriend is friends with one of Melissa's old friends. I thought you should see this." Attached were screenshots. A group chat from weeks ago. It was all there in black and white. A step-by-step plan written by Melissa herself. Phase 1, the breakup speech. Phase 2, secure the apartment. Phase 3, leverage his guilt to get a few months free rent. But it was the last message that hit me like a physical blow. A message from Melissa to her friends. It read, "Once the apartment is secure, I'm moving on to bigger things. This new investor I'm talking to has a beach house in Malibu. David was just a stepping stone, lol." It wasn't just a breakup. It wasn't just an apartment theft. It was a calculated long-term con. I was just a chapter in her business plan. The final piece of the puzzle clicked into place. I looked at Melissa, who was now pleading with the movers to just leave her boxes in the hallway. Then I looked down at the screenshots in my hand. Without a word, I forwarded the entire conversation to one person, her mother, Patricia. The reply came back in less than 10 seconds. It was a single sentence. "I am so sorry, David. I will handle this." Melissa tried one last time, her voice cracking. "Where am I supposed to go?" I looked at her, the woman I once loved, and for the first time I felt nothing. No anger, no sadness, just finality. I said, "That is no longer my problem to solve." After the movers left, the silence in the apartment was deafening. But it wasn't an empty silence. It was a clean silence, a peaceful silence. For the first time in months, I could hear my own thoughts again. I walked through the rooms, my rooms, and it felt like I was breathing fresh air after being trapped underground. I rearranged the furniture, putting my favorite armchair in the perfect spot by the window. I made myself dinner. I sat and watched the city lights come on. It was simple, and it was perfect. The updates on Melissa came in fragments, mostly from Patricia, who called once more to apologize for everything. Melissa was, as predicted, couch surfing. She had burned through 2 relatives in the first week. Her demands and her refusal to contribute anything had worn out her welcome almost immediately. The rich investor with the beach house in Malibu, he ghosted her the second her drama went public. Apparently, he was interested in a fun accessory, not a homeless project with emotional baggage. Her world built on image and leverage had completely collapsed. I don't take any joy in her failure, but I do take satisfaction in the outcome. The truth is, I'm not completely over it. 2.5 years is a long time to invest in a lie. But the hurt fades. What remains is the lesson. You can be a good person, a kind person, a supportive partner, without being a doormat. You can build something beautiful for someone, but you can never let them believe they are entitled to take it from you. Your work, your space, your dignity, they are yours to protect. The most important lesson is this: when someone shows you who they really are, believe them the first time. Don't make excuses for them. Don't hope they'll change. Just believe them. Because in the end, protecting your peace isn't an act of war. It's the ultimate act of self-respect. My apartment is quiet now. My bank account is recovering. My dignity is intact. And from up here looking out over the city, the future looks clear.